All right, time to get started on the 2001 4x4 Xterra. You can tell this thing's been sitting for a while. It's and spider webs and all kinds of bugs and mold and mildew. I mean, it's been sitting. Now, here's where we're at with doing the head gasket. As you can tell, I've already taken out the radiator, the fan shroud, the fan blade, and part of the timing belt cover. Did that a while ago, and then I got too busy to get to it, so I put this on the side burner. So now we're going to get back into it. We're going to tear all this down, and we're going to replace the head gaskets on it. It's got known bad head gaskets, which is very common on these Xterras, the VG33E. Really, the main problem that they have, you replace the head gasket in these things, and they're good as gold. So anyway, we're going to get that replaced, and anyway, we're going to get started on that, and we'll go from there, checking everything out. Okay. Now we've taken a pressure washer to everything. So much cleaner in here. Got rid of all the bugs and anything else that might have been in there. Got all the stuff off the side of the truck. You know, it's obviously not washed or anything, but you know, we got all that junk off of there so that when you're working on the truck and leaning up against it, you're not getting all that stuff all over you. I do that to anything that's been sitting for a while before I get started on it. I take the pressure washer to it and clean it up, because I'd much rather work on a clean vehicle. Now, look what I've done to my F-250. I'm gonna have to clean it. Okay, you can see I have a bolt sticking out of the transmission line here. Over here too. And I got a clamp on it, and the reason for that is, if you want to run this engine, I have the radiator removed and the fan. If you want to run this engine with the radiator removed, you have to plug these lines for the transmission. Otherwise, as soon as you crank it up, the transmission fluid's just going to keep squirting out of there. So just stick your bolt in there, slide your clamp back over it, and you'll avoid the mess. Okay, so already before I had taken out the radiator, the fan shroud, and the fan, and then I just took the top cover off of the timing cover. I just took the top timing cover off. Now there was a bracket with the pulleys that went across here. I'd taken that off, and there was also some cooling lines, obviously, that I took off. All that's pretty self-explanatory. You will want to watch for those transmission lines. Then I've taken off, there's two lines here to the air intake. There's another one on this side. Got to take off the clamp for the throttle body here. Basically, right now we're trying to get this top plenum off. So I've taken all of the clips off of the wiring harness. Everywhere there's an electrical connection, the distributor, mass airflow sensor, temperature sensor, everywhere there's a electrical connection, I've taken it off, and the wiring harness will just lay right back. So now I'm taking the air intake off. I'm going to take the throttle cables off, going to take the spark plug wires off, and then we'll get this plenum off, which is just 6mm Allen heads. And as you can tell, somebody's already messed this one up. These, if you put the right size in there, they'll come right off. You put the wrong size in there, as you can see here, somebody did. They are they're going to be a booger to get out. Okay, I'll have to show you when I get this upper intake plenum off, but there's a maze of tubing underneath there that all stays on the bottom of this intake plenum when you pull it off. So I've left this hose here because it's just going to come right off with the plenum. It was connected here. Obviously already taken that off. These hoses here, you will not have to take them off because they connect to that tubing that stays connected to the intake plenum itself. So on this side you don't have to take those off. This one did have to come off because it connects over here. So alright, this hose here comes off and it goes to the brake booster. It's the main brake booster vacuum line. You're likely to find it in this condition. A lot of Xterras it is, so be doing good to just go ahead and replace that with a new one. Alright, so what I just did on that one, and I'll have to do on this one back here, you can see they stripped that one out too. I just took a quarter inch Allen and drove it down in there with a hammer and cracked it loose, and it came right out. This is a very common problem on Xterras, so you very well may run into this. Alright, this back one was way worse. I had to hammer on my 1/2 inch easy out onto the outside of it. You see where it gripped in there. You see how stripped out it is. Somebody already tried to get in there before and couldn't. If y'all don't have any easy outs, that's what they look like. These things are worth their weight in gold. As always, I'll leave a link down in the description below for some of the tools that I've used here, specifically those easy outs, because you'll really need those. But anyway, I got all these bolts out of the intake, and now there's a couple hoses on the back of it. That one right there that I'm pointing to down on the corner. There's a small one a little further over here, and then there's another one that comes straight up from the bottom. All three of those are very hard to get to. So just know that they're there and have fun getting to them. Alright, so what I've done is propped up this intake after taking those bolts out to show you. See that one electrical connector right there? Got another one over here. And then you can just barely see those vacuum lines that I'm talking about, the rubber hoses that you got to get off in the back. Alright, now I've done a few of these, and I'm here to tell you there ain't an easy way to get these rubber hoses off the back of this manifold. But if you pick it up and turn it and sit it on top of the distributor for just a second, see that clamp right beside that black hose that's going like that? That's the small one I was telling you about. You got to disconnect. Right on the other side of it, if you take this small hose off, right on the other side of it is the clamp for the one that comes straight up from the bottom. It's the easiest way to take this one off. Alright, before we get into these hoses, I want to go ahead and prepare you. More times than not, you're going to need to replace most every one of them. You're going to want to. Alright, This is kind of case in point right here. This, you can see how it's already indented quite a bit. It's actually completely collapsed. I mean, I can't even explain to you how soft that hose is, but it's completely collapsed. And I'm sure you can't see real good down in there, but it's all kinds of deposits in there. Right here, I had to go ahead and cut this because I just couldn't get it. And I had to go ahead and cut this other one too. I'll show you that. All right, you can see I got the clamp off, but I could not get the rust, the hose freed up to spin around. And in the process of trying to do that, it tore this hose up so bad that it was completely useless. So I ended up having to cut a slit in it to be able to free it up to get it off of there. So that's why I said before we started, just know that you're going to have to replace a lot of rubber hoses. Now, let me go ahead and get this top of the intake out of here. All right, so here's the intake from underneath. And you can see here's another bad hose that needs to be replaced. This one's not all that great. It needs to be replaced. I'm going to go ahead and see, that's not good. That needs to be replaced. This one here as well, it needs to be replaced. This is the one that I just had to cut slap off. You see all that rust in there, and the hose actually rusts to the tube, which is the same thing it did on this side. This one, see all the deposits in the tube there? They just won't come off. Some people get lucky and get theirs to come off, but I've done quite a few of these and I haven't been able to get any of them off. This is the one electrical connection that's really tight when you try and pull the intake off. And then this one is the one that slides on to that right there and slides off. It gives you a little bit more play, but this one's really tight. Okay, I just left all my spark plug wires connected to my distributor cap and just took the 2 screws out and took the cap off to get it out of the way. To each their own, but as soon as I get the intake up, I like to get the lower plenum covered up, because you can drop anything down in there and it'd be a nightmare to try and get it back out. Especially, see all this wire loom right here? It's been baking in all the heat and it just literally just falls apart. So be good to keep it covered up. All right, the trick to these injector wires is you push in the center of this clip, okay? Push that in and then you push it down. See how it's going down inside the clip? And then you pull up on the whole thing and it'll pop right out. Now, I say that, but I've got a couple, this one and that one in the front that's not doing that. These second 2, they popped right off no problem. And I haven't even tried the back 2 yet, but that's the trick to them. A lot of people think that they got to just push in real hard and, yank on them and this and that. You don't have to do that. You just push this clip in, push in the center, and then push it all the way down, and then pull up on the black part, and it should pop right off. Now the ones that don't, you'll have to hold that green part down inside there, hold it all the way down where we had it, and then you'll have to use some pliers or something and just real gently pry it up off of there for the ones that won't come off. Okay, one of the things you're going to want to do is check the pressure in your AC system. Now, if your AC works, you know you have pressure on your AC system. If your AC doesn't work, it's not necessarily because you don't have Freon in it. So this is the test port right here, and you can buy a small cheap gauge at most any auto parts store or online, like even Amazon. Now, the real way to test this is with it running and with the AC on full blast. However, all you want to know if it's holding pressure. So when you put your gauge on there, you'll hear a, like air pushing out. That means you have pressure on the system. If you have pressure on the system, it means you have no leaks in the system. So you don't want to go taking these fittings off of your AC compressor unless you just absolutely have to. Now, we have rubber hoses here, so I believe that we're going to be able to unbolt this AC compressor and just move it out of the way, even if I got to strap a bungee cord or something to it to hold it up. Since we got a rubber hose here and this turns into a rubber hose here, so I believe that we can just strap it out of the way, and that way we won't have to take the fittings off and lose all our Freon and then possibly mess up some O-rings or something. So if you have pressure on your system, strap it up out of the way. Don't take it apart, don't take it loose.